You know that feeling when you've been staring at your screen, just scrolling and scrolling, and you kind of zone out and wonder, what am I even looking at right now? Well, we're going to dig into that exact feeling, but we're going to use a guide that's, well, let's just say it's surprisingly old. So let's start with a big question. Is your phone a window that shows you the world? Or is it really just a wall you're staring at? I mean, hey, let's be honest. The view on this wall is amazing. It's got an endless scroll, the feed is perfectly tailored to me, it knows exactly what shadows I want to see next. Because what if the single best explanation for your TikTok feed wasn't written by some tech bro last week, but by a Greek philosopher way, way back in 375 BCE? Yeah, that's right. We are talking about Plato. Forget Silicon Valley for a second. We're about to make the case that Plato basically invented the metaverse. Not with a fancy headset and lines of code, but with one of the most powerful and enduring thought experiments in human history. And to get this, you have to understand Plato wasn't just some guy chilling in a toga. He lived through some seriously chaotic times in Athens. We're talking war, political coups, and he actually watched his mentor, the great Socrates, get executed. That moment changed everything for him. It made him deeply skeptical of what the crowd believes and sent him on a lifelong search for a much deeper, more permanent truth. So out of all that, he gives us this story, the Allegory of the Cave. And it's really his master metaphor for how we as people struggle with ignorance and how the path to real knowledge is actually incredibly difficult and, frankly, pretty painful. Okay, so let's picture the scene he lays out. You've got these prisoners who have been chained up since they were born. All they can do is stare straight ahead at a stone wall. Now, behind them, there's a big fire. And in between the fire and the prisoners, there are these puppeteers walking back and forth, holding up objects that cast shadows on the wall. For these prisoners, those flickering shapes and the echoes they hear, that is reality. It's the whole show. Basically, it's the world's first and probably worst movie theater. Now, here is the crucial bit. For Plato, those shadows aren't just shadows. They represent our entire physical world, everything we see, hear, and touch. He had this idea called the theory of forms, which says that for everything in our world, whether it's a chair or a concept like justice, there's a perfect, eternal, unchanging version of it out there somewhere. He called it the form. Our world is just a flickering, cheap copy. And the only way you can grasp those true forms is not with your eyes, but with your mind, the reason. All right, so that's the ancient setup. Now let's see how this story becomes a scarily accurate map of the world we live in right now. This is where it gets a little personal. Let's just map it out, one to one. The prisoners in the cave? Well, that's us, staring at our screens. The chains holding them in place? Those are our devices, sure, but also the compulsive habits that keep us glued to them. The shadows on the wall? That's your social media feed, a perfectly curated, filtered, and often distorted version of what's really happening. And the puppeteers? They're the algorithms and the content creators, deciding which shadows get cast. The fire that lights up the whole show? That's the massive infrastructure of the internet itself. And the result of all this is that a huge slice of what we call reality is now being filtered through a screen. You know, our sunlight isn't the actual sun anymore, it's the blue light from a device, all powered by code that's designed to show us the shadows it thinks we want to see. We are spending way more time watching the wall than living in the actual world. But what happens if one of these prisoners actually breaks free? This is probably the most intense part of Plato's story, and it's all about the painful, completely disorienting journey out of that illusion. See, Plato says the prisoner doesn't just get up and happily walk out. He's dragged out. And at first, the light from the fire, let alone the actual sun, is agonizing. His first instinct is to run back to the familiar, comfortable darkness. But slowly, his eyes start to adjust. He begins to see real objects for the first time, then the stars at night, and then finally, he can look at the sun itself. This is not some instant epiphany. It's a slow, difficult process of completely recalibrating what you think is real. And that sun symbolizes what Plato called the good. For him, it's not just another thing to look at. It is the source of all reality and all truth. It's the thing that makes everything else visible and makes understanding possible in the first place. The ultimate goal isn't just seeing the world. It's understanding the source of the light itself. But here's the tragic twist in the story. When this enlightened prisoner goes back down into the cave to tell everyone what he's seen, they don't believe him. Of course they don't. His eyes are now used to the bright light, so he can't even see the shadows clearly anymore. They laugh at him, they call him insane. They see his truth as a direct threat to their entire reality, and Plato says they would actually try to kill him before they'd let him set them free. Sound familiar? It's basically the ancient blueprint for what happens when you challenge the groupthink inside an online echo chamber. And this really gets to the heart of the whole problem. It's a choice. The comfort of the illusion is just so powerful. It's easy, it's familiar, and it's what everybody else around you believes. The discomfort of the truth, on the other hand, is huge. It can be isolating, and it forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew. Plato knew, even then, that most people, when given that choice, will pick the comfortable lie every single time. So, after this whole trip from an ancient cave all the way to our modern glowing screens, the final question, well, it really has to be about us, doesn't it? It's kind of amazing how these lessons from over 2,000 years ago are so sharp today. Plato taught us that really seeing the world isn't something that just happens to you. It's an active, difficult choice. Illusions aren't powerful because they're convincing. They're powerful because they are comfortable. And real knowledge, it takes work, and it's often going to make you uncomfortable. The bottom line is, whether it's shadows on a rock wall or pixels in a VR headset, the metaverse is just a much fancier, much more elaborate cave. So I guess I'll just leave you with this. The next time you're scrolling, and that screen feels like a perfect little window looking out onto the world, just stop for a second and ask yourself, am I really looking through a window, or am I just watching shadows on a wall? And maybe, more importantly, who's casting them?